We are so happy to be here in the studio with our very special guest, a colleague. He's a journalist like us, editor-in-chief of the Michigan Bulletin in Lansing, Michigan.
That's right.
And his name is Gregory P. Kelley. Am I right?
That's correct.
And the P stands for?
Paul. I'm named after my uncle.
You see, named after his uncle, because we have always learned how to love our beloved ones. And from our uncles we have learned a lot, a whole lot. Well, Gregory, thank you for joining us.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
What can you tell us are the aims and objectives of the Michigan Bulletin to begin with?
Well, the Michigan Bulletin is a community newspaper. We were established about 13 years ago. We've been published in 13 years, and we haven't missed a publication date. It's a newspaper that's not only for the community, but it's a newspaper to train journalists. And that's what we've done over the years. We've had a number of people who were either graphic artists or photographers or writers that have come through. And of course they've gone on, but a lot of the youngsters that worked on the paper, some of them are in the field of media, and of course some of them are in several other fields. We had a group called the Young Publishers, and the Young Publishers were primarily young people who were trying to learn how to craft their writing, and basically were high school kids. And they would come through, the last wave came through a couple years ago, and they were busy and writing and doing a number of things, but usually by the time we get to the middle of the senior year, we start to lose the group, but that's okay too, because they don't have to remain journalists. Writing is a skill that they can use wherever they go, however they go, after they leave us. And that's been one of the things that I've seen as now they start to come back and you start to see them later, how well they've been able to use those skills in other areas.
Gregory, we are living in a moment whereby journalism as a profession is becoming more and more important. The people are in need of information, but not always can they count on the exact sources that could provide them the information necessary truthfully, especially the people of African descent and other people. I don't know why they call them minorities, because so many of them together can never be minority anymore, but people who are not Euro-Anglo-Saxons. I consider that as soon as I hear America, it gives me that impression that it is a country founded and run by the Europeans, Anglo-Saxon factor of that society. And then the rest, for whatever reasons brought here and how brought here, which is also a point of discussion thoroughly, from Africa, from Asia, from the Caribbean, from the Middle East, are secondary and tertiary citizens and never getting too much of what they need in order to form themselves, educate themselves properly in a society which should promote a change to the benefit of all. Am I right, or am I saying things that are not correct?
Well, basically, in the Western world, what you fight for and what you're able to hold on to, as A. Philip Randolph used to speak of at the end of the day, is that's what you're able to keep. If you can't hold on to it, you can't keep it. And no one's going to give you anything. Whatever you get, you got. And whatever you keep, you keep. And it's the same thing with the rights and the freedoms. We've come to this land primarily in chains and managed to, over a number of years, find a way to liberate ourselves as an individual and as a people. But the struggle continues. It hasn't gone. And no, in America, where you have a democracy, there's no such thing as degrees of citizenship. we're all first-class citizens. But in order for that to be a reality, we have to have the force, both in terms of our vote and our feet, to make sure that's enforced. Because you can have a rule, but if you don't enforce the rule, then you have nothing. And that's where we're at currently in this society, where we've come far. Yes, much has been accomplished, but there's much more that needs to be done. And yes, the Europeans and those European descent have always tried to impose their will, and then tried to impose their perspective, and tried to impose their interpretation of events and history. They've always done that. It's up to us, through whatever communication means that we have, to counter that with how we see the reality, what we view as the truth, and how we see our lives and the lives of our children develop under these austere conditions. That's our role. And they can't tell us how to interpret that role, and they can't tell us to see what they see, because we don't see that. And in our communities, it's one of the struggles I've had in terms of being a journalist, is keeping that perspective out there, that we don't have to accept what the local newspapers say, and we don't have to accept what the local television say is happening in our community, because they don't know. And we have to always be able to present, but it means the work has to be done, you know, to talk about our perspective in terms of not only the local matters, but be able to say something about what's happening internationally. You know, as a people, we're part of the planet, and we have a right to have an opinion like everybody else about the events of the world.
Oh yes, especially that opinion.
Yes.
Opinion. So happy that you mentioned that, Gregory. We have a right and also a duty to have an opinion. Otherwise, we are no democracy.
Right.
Otherwise, words like democracy become empty vessels, making a whole lot of noise, but on the inside, nothing. Because opinion, many times, is reserved only to certain portions of the society, which is the elitist society, sectors of the society. And then, you know, we people, whether we have opinion, whether one likes it or doesn't like it. But I'm very happy that you stated that, listening brothers and sisters and you viewers of Radio Eugene Godfried International around the world, we are in an exclusive dialogue with a colleague of ours who is the editor-in-chief of the Michigan Bulletin in Lansing, Michigan. And his name is Gregory Paul Kelley.
My mother would like you for that.
But of course, well, I would like your mother too. Why breaking away with our traditions? She named you after Paul because Paul was a worthwhile and a valuable personality. And hoping that you'll become like Paul.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. Plus, I look just like him.
We have no sufficient words to thank you, Gregory Paul Kelley, for your assistance to us in this dialogue, for having accepted one to come and join us in this exchange of ideas. And we don't have all sufficient words indeed to thank you for all the wisdom and teachings that you have shared with us on this occasion. But we do know that we are convinced that we can count on you on another occasion to continue the dialogue.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
This river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change has gotta come.